People power growth, but recruiting and onboarding are expensive, exhausting, and absolutely overwhelming. I've been there, and it doesn't have to be this way. Welcome to Hire and Empower. I'm your host, Molly McGrath. Join me as we interview leaders who care about their teams and distill powerful lessons from them. This show is sponsored by H&E, helping organizations to find their best hire and empower them for success. Learn more at hiringandempowering.com. All right, gang, we are talking about a hot topic that we're constantly seeing: blockchain, cryptocurrency, yada, 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 all the new monies. And I'm so delighted and excited to have today our guest, attorney Anthony Garcia. Anthony also has a LLM in taxation, and Anthony is licensed in practices in Colorado and California, but also a fun little tip is Anthony has been operating off of the virtual law practice for 3 years now. Is that right?
That's right.
Wow. Way before COVID, huh? Or did you
Yeah,
kick it off at COVID? Tell us a little bit about your virtual journey real quick.
sure. Absolutely. The idea really came to me when I was working at another firm in person. And I noticed that in the 3.5 years that I was working at that firm, that I really only went to court about maybe 10 times or so. All other meetings and hearings were done telephonically. There actually wasn't a lot of video conferencing that had been going on at that time. So when I went off and I decided to do my own law practice, I realized that, hey, I can do this. I can do it fully remote. I have the tech skills to do that. And it's been great. It's been fine. I've been doing this fully remote for about 3.5 years. Occasionally, I will have to go to Denver. Right now, I'm traveling. I've used my time fully remote to do a lot of traveling. And whenever I need to go to Denver, which is maybe once every 3 or 4 months, I'll just arrange that well in advance. And it's usually no problem. I actually just came back from Denver on Thursday or Friday of last week. I had a deposition to attend that was in person. And I had a presentation with the Denver Bar Association in person about some of the issues that we hopefully will be talking about today.
Oh, yes. Let's dive in. Tell us, you and I, before we started hitting record, you were telling me about your presentation that you just gave at the Denver Bar. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The presentation, I called it the intersection of crypto or blockchain with probate law. And it really was a primer for attorneys that might have heard the terms crypto, Bitcoin, etc. in the news or just in passing, but maybe didn't know a whole lot about it. And I wanted to give the presentation so that people would know where the pitfalls were, would understand what some of the issues are with crypto, and really how to avoid unintentionally committing malpractice or something like that. So I did that presentation, and I feel like I had some really good information for people.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the issues that you see. I think I shared with you, many of our listeners are estate planning and probate and trust administration attorneys. So let's begin to that first and foremost. What are the issues that you're seeing?
Right. The main issue is that crypto is very similar to a bearer asset, where whoever's holding it is really considered the owner. But it's a little bit more involved in that a lot of this is based on technology. And so who is actually holding the crypto is a bit more complex than just physically having a piece of paper, like in the bearer asset context. With crypto, there's these types of security called private keys. And whoever has access to the private keys has access to the cryptocurrencies in the wallet. And if you want me to explain what that actually means, I can certainly go into it. But the main takeaway that I had from my presentation was that estate planners or anyone else in this field that is handling cryptocurrencies really needs to understand a bit about the underlying technology so that they're protecting these private keys and making sure that they're not inadvertently disclosed to anyone, because the main feature, and some would argue the main drawback to crypto, is that it's extremely anonymous, which can give rise to theft. So anyone who has access to these private keys can take the assets, and in the estate planning context, you just don't ever really want to be the one that's quote unquote holding the assets, because if they get stolen by a third party, there's really no way to tell who actually did it, and you don't want to avoid being accused of stealing it yourself. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm happy to talk about the underlying technology to really give your listeners some more information about what it is they're dealing with crypto.
Yeah,
So,
I'd love for you to give us the underlying technology, and then also let's talk about some of the issues to pay attention to for our law firm listeners.
sure. Well, with crypto, what it is ultimately is just a ledger, just a record of transactions, who gave how much to who else. And what makes it different, though, from just an ordinary accounting ledger is that not just one person has access to it. So imagine a scenario where everyone who's using a particular cryptocurrency network, such as Bitcoin or Ethereum, some of these other names you might have heard about, they all have access to the same ledger in real time. So what that allows is for the entire network to verify whether a transaction has actually taken place. It's really a revolution in trust. Some of the earlier TED Talks about blockchain and cryptocurrencies as it was coming out really talked about the revolution of trust, in that the network itself is completely decentralized. It does not require any central party to intermediate transactions or anything like that. It's completely self-run, and you can really trust that whatever transactions appear on the blockchain have actually taken place. So there's just a very minimal amount of fraud, if any fraud, that can occur when transactions happen on the blockchain. So blockchain itself is the underlying technology. So whenever you hear that, that's really what I just explained, was this system of really crowdsourced verification of transactions. Cryptocurrency is an application of blockchain to finance, or to money, if you will. And that's where it's really conflated a lot of the time. And what's really difficult for some people to grasp, like my parents, for example, is there's no like physical asset. Like, even though Bitcoin, which is the cryptocurrency that everyone has heard about, has the word coin in it, there's actually no coin at all. You can't just go to the bank and trade in your Bitcoin for, like, a piece of metal or something. It purely lives on the blockchain, or on the internet. And one of the, getting sort of back to why is this relevant? Why should practitioners really care about this? The driving force that helps secure the network is really the distinction between public and private keys. So how it works is each person who wants to use the blockchain network, or the cryptocurrency network, will establish what's called a wallet. And if you think about it just like an account, for example, or like I used a safety deposit box as an example. The public address is the location that everyone can see about where your safety deposit box is located. It's at the, for example, it's at the Wells Fargo on 17th and Broadway, downtown Denver. That is the equivalent of the public key or public address. The private key is equivalent to let's just say your key to access the safety deposit box. But with crypto, anyone who can see the key or knows what it is has essentially a copy of your safety deposit box key, and they can just take whatever is in the safety deposit box. And in this case, it would be the wallet. So when dealing with these cryptocurrency issues, it's really important to never allow the disclosure of the private keys. Okay. And that is where I can see practitioners getting into trouble if they don't really know what these keys are. And in my presentation with the Denver Bar Association, I actually showed an example of a transaction. And one of the main ways that these private keys are stored is in a set of 24, sometimes 12, varying numbers of code words that are arranged in a very particular order that you receive at the time you create your wallet. And you're supposed to write those down and keep them secret. Anyone who finds out what those words are and the order that they're in, they can generate the private key. By the way, stop me if this is way too technical.
No, keep going.
Sure. So keeping those words, which it's really called the recovery phrase or the seed phrase, secret, is of paramount importance when dealing with crypto. And really, you really should just not disclose it to anyone at all. Right. And I argue that perhaps you shouldn't even disclose it to the court if they force you to do it. I mean, there are situations where I would probably fight to try and keep those things disclosed. Absolutely never disclose the keys in a public will. Maybe if you're going to dispose of assets in a trust, you might want to keep the public key on a separate piece of paper. There's all these sort of best practices that really are just being developed as we speak because this is such a new area. But really the main thing is never let these private keys out of your sight.
So what's a workaround? Because you have legal issues, right? So never ever, but you also have law firms that, maybe say, no way, Jose, to any of this new money, this new way of transaction, crypto, what have you. What are some of the ways? Because I know you work a lot with creating digital estate plans that incorporate crypto and other digital assets. What's your recommendation for law firms for why to start getting into this new space? Number one, and number two, what to do about it?
Sure. I think everyone in our field should at least become acquainted with crypto and maybe have a fundamental or basic understanding of what these assets are, because they are proliferating. They're becoming more and more popular each day. Particularly, there's new developments that happen with cryptocurrencies almost on a daily basis. They just are becoming a larger and larger part of our lives. Mm-hmm. For example, I believe in November of this year, they might become the basis of our financial system under something called ISO 20022 or something. They are really becoming a larger and larger part of our lives. So I think it's becoming incumbent upon us as lawyers to find out what these are, how do we protect them for our clients, and get involved. I would say in terms of a recommendation for people is, if you don't want to know what these are, or if you find that this is just too techy and maybe requires a level of nerdiness that you don't want to invest in, you might just want to outsource some of that knowledge to perhaps a consultant or someone else that you trust that knows what's going on.
Ideally, a lawyer such as yourself that also has a legal background.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. So for law firms that are seeing more and more business owners and more clients coming in, whether it be in the estate planning, the real estate, whatever the realm might be in their specific niche practice, what is your recommendation? Because so often I'll hear from people, no, I'll refer them elsewhere. I don't deal with that. But what I'm hearing from you is that in order for you to be a progressive law firm, number one, don't be afraid of it, know the issues and embrace it. And if not you, then what?
Well, if not me, there's plenty of
Not
resources.
you, but a law firm that has no interest in geeking out and being nerdy, but they're saying, okay, I'm seeing more and more of this in estate planning or probate or what have you, or real estate. I'm seeing more and more clients come in, but I don't have the knowledge and the skill set to facilitate it. What would be some of the things that you would share with them for number one, what to pay attention and look for, and then number two, how they can work with other attorneys such as yourself to co-counsel on this so they don't turn away business?
Sure. One of the things that I recommended in my recent presentation is that you might not actually know whether or not cryptocurrencies are even an issue unless you ask the right questions. And the reason for that is a lot of times people that are involved in cryptocurrencies, they believe that they are really independent people. A lot of the earlier individuals that were involved in this technology from the beginning are actually anti-government, which is kind of an interesting part about it. So they really value secrecy and making sure that no one knows they have crypto. So you really have to make sure you're asking the right questions, doing the right kind of investigation to really find out whether or not this is a potential asset class that is just missing from the estate. You know, people can have millions of dollars of cryptocurrencies that no one else knows about. I actually have a friend of mine who made his fortune from cryptocurrencies, and he's the most secretive person I know. You would never tell that he was a millionaire. He used to drive this car that just was rusted on the outside. It's awful, but yeah. So back to what I was saying.
Like the millionaire next. Well, as you're even describing that, I'm even like, wow, there's a whole marketing opportunity for estate planning attorneys from the pre-planning side for the millionaire next door that you just described, that's driving around in a rust bucket and, you know, thinking they're, you know, high on the hog, if you will. But if they get in a car crash, what happens with all of that?
That's exactly right. And the unfortunate reality is that if these individuals have not made a effective estate plan before they unexpectedly pass away or become incapacitated, those assets could be lost. There are numerous stories in the news about people who did not make provisions for how to transfer those assets. And because people can see what balances are in these wallets, these people who really failed to protect their keys or to, you know, transfer them, what have you, they can see the millions of dollars worth of assets in arm's reach away, but they can't do anything about it. And this is a really underserved market.
Yeah, I bet.
Extremely underserved. And I think it's incumbent upon us as lawyers to really start working with those people.
And educating them and bringing the awareness. So listen up for any of you in regards to, you know, family law, jeepers creepers in regards to assets when it comes time for that. I mean, for you to really, I see a beautiful opportunity for attorneys to get educated in high enough to know what the legal issues are. And I think you're going to tell us at the end of this about a tool you have for our listeners to support them to download, but and also just to really shine the flashlight and make them from a level of awareness, right?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you get into crypto?
That's just by being a huge nerd. Uh, well, no, actually, I had a friend of mine who he was recommended Bitcoin to invest in Bitcoin back in, I think, 2010 or 2011 as a result of reading some sort of really small article, and he thought it was a great idea. And he had the opportunity to invest like $10,000 when Bitcoin was maybe $1 or $10 or something. We didn't actually know anything about it at the time. We just thought, hey, this is cool. You should throw some money at it. And he didn't do it. And so for the past 10 years or so, we've just been making fun of him this whole time. Like, hey, you could have been a billionaire, man. And in 2017, I really decided that it was my time to learn more about it, get involved I had no idea what any of this stuff was. I just knew that Bitcoin was this, really interesting asset. And I did a deep dive and just got really involved in the space. It's really sort of an unusual Wild West type of environment. A lot of the information that you need to know in order to learn about crypto is not really yet accessible in one location. Like there's no school of crypto as far as I know. You just have to learn it from gleaning it in various different locations like Twitter, social media. It's one of those things that's just so new. You really have to be involved in it to figure out what's going on. So that's how I did, and I loved it. I just fell in love with crypto. I'm a lawyer, but I think I've always wanted to be involved in the tech field, and my life just went in a different direction. So this is a way that I found to really satisfy both of my interests, being a lawyer and being in tech.
So you married the nerdy side, the tech side, all that with the law side, and now you've made a niche practice out of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us a little bit about this tool that you have for our attorneys listening and consumers, if they're consumers, in regards to learn more about this.
Right. I'm developing and will soon be posting a list of questions, interview questions that one might want to ask their prospective client about, to just get an idea of, is cryptocurrency going to be an issue in my case or in this estate? Because a lot of times people might just not know where to start. How do you even know if cryptocurrency is going to be an issue? And so this list of questions I'll be posting on my website that people can download and just use it as a starting off point to see whether or not they either will need to brush up or learn completely the fundamentals of crypto, or if they want to reach out to me or any other specialist that they trust to handle this issue for them.
I even see some of these as you were speaking about that, and before we recorded today, having that within your intake process to really get that R&D to see how many people, whether they hire you, they don't hire you, all your PNCs calling into your office, or even doing some split testing ads out there in Facebook, and really seeing, I think it'd be fun for the attorneys to really see how wildly prevalent this is in today's world, and finding a way to, like you said, your first experience with friends and seeing, wow, we don't know much about this, but there are many people who are involved in this space and really using it as an opportunity for running their law firm and working with people. Now, do you take crypto as part of payment? Is that?
I do offer that. I will admit I haven't had anyone take advantage of that yet. I tell people that I will give them a discount if they pay me in crypto, but I'm not dissuaded. I know that it will eventually become much more prevalent than it is today. I think the hesitancy for that, or some additional adoption of this technology, is currently the regulatory sphere for crypto is very uncertain. There's no, to my knowledge, comprehensive law that the federal government has issued that would help deal with crypto. So there's a lot of hesitancy from institutional folks like banks and credit cards and stuff to really use this stuff. But I do think that will soon be resolved in the next 2 to 5 years. So I do think that's going to be something for me to use. Additionally, if people haven't heard about this, there's a technology based on blockchain called NFTs, which is really in the news.
How do you spell that?
N like Nancy, F as in Frank, T as in Tom.
Oh, NFTs, yes.
Yeah, it actually, I probably should have went with, it stands for non-fungible tokens.
Yes.
And that was a big deal maybe 6 months to a year ago.
Yep.
There was a huge craze about these JPEGs that were selling for millions of dollars and stuff. And while that's funny and it's cool, the real kicker to that is this technology allows for essentially chain of title to be established over the internet. And there's really interesting applications that are being developed to replace chain of title searches for real estate. And there's a company, I forget the name of it, but there's a company that's working on that right now. I think they've sold some houses in Florida or maybe some other states that is utilizing this technology. So it's, like I said, I feel like this is going to be a huge, huge market with it at the very least in the next decades.
Yeah, which is like tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny because I heard all about NFTs, lawyers, legal organizations were on the front of it, holding all these webinars, doing all these workshops, doing weekend events at hotels and on yachts and what have you. And then I haven't seen anything on the internet about it. I felt like my whole feed was flooded with ads around it, and now I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, and to that point, I feel like anyone who's a lawyer who's sort of trying to dip their toe into crypto, it might seem as though the majority of issues surrounding it right now are like SEC issues. Is this a security? Is it a commodity? That sort of thing. And they're really turned off by that. But really, at the end of the day, these are just assets, and you really should not be scared to treat them as such and work with your clients on that. For example, you mentioned that it might be important in a family law context. I think that just popped. I mean, I'd never really considered that. I can certainly see a situation where a husband or a wife in a contentious litigation, just not disclose that in their financial disclosures.
Yeah. And, I can see a whole, I'm just like seeing the ad right now out there on the SEO bill.
Yeah. And in that situation, I think it would be huge to be able to say, hey, I saw that you were logging onto a cryptocurrency exchange 3 months ago. Like, do you have cryptocurrencies that I don't know about?
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I hope our listeners our creative, our visionary listeners here are thinking of, whether it's creating personalized digital estate plans that incorporate crypto and other digital assets, or family law, or just really having some fun and getting deeply curious. And what I love what you say is, do not be afraid of cryptocurrencies. Be aware, know the rules, know the law, paying special attention, who holds that special key, and really being aware of that, but also knowing how to counsel your clients regarding some of these crypto related tax strategies and or the consequences, or talking about our family law attorneys here. I could think of a whole amazing marketing campaign for that. But I know many of our listeners do not want to become an expert in crypto. However, they can contact you and download your tool, and we'll put your links all here on your website. It'll be on your website, right?
Yes.
For them to download. Great. And so I'll put your link to your website out there. But if it's something that they're saying no to, they're getting more and more calls, whether for existing clients, for payments, for contracts, for, if it's pre-planning, after death, family law, whatever it might be, business disputes, inheritance issues, all that. How do our listeners get a hold of you?
Sure. By email would probably be the best way. My
Okay.
email address is agarcia@agarcialegal.com. They can also give me a call. I'm in between paralegals right now, but they can certainly call me direct, 720-663-1834. If they don't reach me right away, they can just leave me a voicemail, and I'll
Great.
get back to them as soon as possible.
And I'll put your website link here, agarcialegal.com. And in addition to, you will have there the link to download the tool as well as for the power questions for you to incorporate within your practice and within your counseling initiatives. So great. Well, Andy, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being on.
Okay, great. All right, guys, we're going to have all the goodies and the links in the show notes for you. For those of you that are listening and not on your computer and having access to the show notes, again, Anthony Garcia Law Firm, agarcialegal.com is where you want to go to get all the goodies and get the know-hows in regards to cryptocurrencies and the legal issues you want to pay attention to. Until next time, continue being a legal leader, leading legal leaders. We've reached the end of another impactful conversation on the Hire and Empower podcast. Whether this was your first episode or you're a longtime listener, I know you can tell I have passion for people. Whether you're a business owner, employee, executive, or hiring manager, I understand the situation you're in. Hiring, onboarding, and leadership is expensive, exhausting, overwhelming, and if that's not enough, it's also time-consuming. My friends, it doesn't have to be this way. There is a team at H&E that has your back. For over 25 years, they've transformed over 4,000 law firms into efficient, effective, profitable assets for their business and made it fun to come to work again. Check out our Smart Hire solution, our employee leadership program, and the 66-day law firm turnaround at hiringandempowering.com.